The stream is live. How about that?
We are live.
All right.
So, welcome everyone to another episode of The Talk. We've got a great show for you. I'm Brian Green, your host tonight, and an ambassador for the show. If you're tuning in live, let us know in the chat where you're tuning in from. Drop a question or a comment. We would love for you to be part of the talk. So this evening, I've got the great privilege of introducing our special guest, Peter Noerbaek of PBN Audio. PBN will be exhibiting with us at LoneStar Audiofest in May, as well as the show SoCal in June. So, Peter, welcome.
Thank you much.
Yeah, I'd just like to kick things off with getting maybe a quick introduction of who you are for our audience.
Sure.
And then we can kind of transition into getting into like the background of the company and talk more about your extensive product offering.
Sure. So I'm born in Denmark and I moved to the United States in 1986. And I got here via a company doing large industrial installations that made concrete batch planes. And I was like the guy that made everything work electrically and electronically. And that job brought me all over the world for about 8 years. And then eventually here to the United States, and first as a service technician and then as a service manager. And that was in 86. And then I started PBN Audio in April 1st, 1992 as a side job per se. And then I went full-time January 1st, 1993.
Yeah, that developed pretty quickly then. Yeah, just within a year, you made that whole transition.
Yeah, oh, that was scary.
So, yeah, it sounds like you had an extensive, background in engineering.
Well, yeah, I'm an electrical engineer of education, so that obviously helps.
Yeah. So
I started making audio equipment when I was about 6 years old. I built a set of speakers with my grandpa. And we basically took apart a pair of Bang & Olufsen speakers and we built bigger boxes for them. And that's kind of what started this whole thing. And then in high school and in college, I built speakers for myself and my buddies and stuff like that. And as an amateur, I quit counting when I had built 100. And so I've been doing this basically my whole life.
Yeah, it sounds like it's also kind of a, family affair, something that's kind of got handed down.
Yeah, my grandfather was a watchmaker, so he was very handy, and I give my ability to use my hands and stuff like that to him. He was a very good craftsman, and so like the woodworking part of this whole thing is self-taught. The painting part is self-taught. But it helps having a good education, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I think that kind of gave us a good background. I'm curious if there's any kind of more personal details about, why you focused on audio specifically.
Basically, when I was a kid, it was the hobby to have. I mean, everybody I went to school with, in high school with, they all had a stereo. That was like the thing. And, we collected records. This was the first record I bought, which I bought when I was 7 years old. And it is Beatles' Rubber Soul. And so that's what kind of got me into it. I just never let go of the hobby. So like even when I went to college and, stuff like that, it was always something I did. When I started my company, PBN Audio, we started importing audio vector loudspeakers from Denmark. And I had built, I think while I went to college, I had built their kit called a trapeze. And I actually think, no, I can't remember if I brought them with me here or not. Maybe not. And then my brother, my younger brother, he was a furniture salesman, and he was working at a very fancy furniture store in Copenhagen. And I was back in Denmark for Christmas. I forgot when it was, maybe 91. And in this very fancy furniture store called Ilums Bolighus, they had a audio room per se, because it's part of, your house. And they had audio vector speakers in there. And I said, oh man, this was kind of funny, fun and great. And, I remember I built this speaker way back when, and then I got back here to the States and I faxed. That's what we did back then. We sent faxes. Mm-hmm. Ola from Audio Vector, and I said, hey, I'm interested in importing your speakers. And so that's kind of what got the start of the company.
Yeah, excellent.
And so I did that for a couple of years or so. And then I said, I should start making some of myself. And then we started, the first commercial speaker I made was one that we called a Montana 2. And it was basically your 90s, MTM Diapolito 2 7-inch woofers and a 1-inch tweeter that, everybody made back then. And I made, 4 or 5 sets, and I demoed them for a couple of Chinese U.S. residents in the Los Angeles area, and I said, hey man, these are really great. We want to import them to China. So they placed an order for 100 sets, and I'm like, okay, how am I going to make these? And so that's kind of what got the ball rolling.
Yeah, all right. So, getting into your self-built products. I'd like to just start off by saying, PBN Audio's, received a number of accolades over the years.
Oh yeah.
And we've seen, reviews out of Stereophile, Bound for Sound, by Audiophile Voice, among others, and more recently, just people uploading onto YouTube itself after seeing your demos at shows and other places.
Yeah, that is one of the main reasons that we go to the shows, is to meet people, of course, and then also we get pretty good press. And especially in the last 2 or 3 shows, we've gone pretty big. I don't know if you've seen the videos from the last Los Angeles show.
I experienced it myself. I was there.
Oh, good. We actually I had a friend of mine from San Diego that was up there with me selling records. And he said, do you mind if I have some friends staying over in the room, this evening, and we'll play some tape? And I said, sure, go ahead. And they stayed there from like 7 o'clock at night till like 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I think I was done around midnight.
Yeah, that was a real fun thing.
Yeah, I think my favorite tape that they had played, they had a Rush reel and played back Xanadu. So I enjoyed that personally. Yeah,
no, it was that was a real good show. And actually, I've been, my first show I did was CES in January 1993. And I was in Vegas for every January for almost 26 years. I think the last show we did was in like 17 or 18. I can't quite remember. And at the same time, the show organization started way back when, before like maybe late 90s, with a guy, his name was Ken Maverick. And then Mike Maloney took it over. And then Richard Beers took it over, and Richard Beers ran the show as another show next to, like, for an example, the Alexis Park, when the CES was in Vegas. And that was kind of like when we got into being in the bigger rooms, and you can make a much more impressive display in a large room like that. And so we were, I think, what was that hotel called over on the side? I can't remember. It was kind of like in the olden days when it was at the Sahara, I think it was called, up there. And there was the bi-level where high-end audio was. And there was, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 rooms on each floor. And there was, from memory, there was like four floors in 2 different buildings. And there was like 2 big rooms on either side. And eventually, when it moved to the Saint-Tropez, I think it was called, right next to the Alexis Park. And that was kind of like when we got into the big rooms. And we have then done that ever since.
Yeah.
It lends itself well to big speakers.
Absolutely, yeah. If I had to kind of sum up my past experiences with PBN audio going to shows in a single word, I would just use big.
Hopefully more than big, also well sounding.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd like to kind of get into, I guess, just I think you've described as an overall statement of, what you're offering through PBN audio is, a total system company.
Yes.
And creating amplifiers, preamplifiers, and specifically to support, your wholly uncompromised speakers. And so I kind of like to start there with the speakers. Because I've seen, by taking a look at kind of your current catalog, you've taken varied design approaches, I'd say. Where typically when someone kind of looks at, say, speaker company A, they'll have, let's just say, like 3 lines of speakers, and they all kind of look like the same thing. They might have just differences in the scale. So they might have like a bookshelf with a woofer and a dome tweeter. And then to move up from there, you might get 2 woofers and a tweeter. But it's kind of the same kind of template.
Right.
So when I'm looking at what you're offering, the varied design approaches, you'll see on some models, large woofers with dome tweeters, some with ribbon tweeters. There's dome mid-ranges. Some feature compression drivers, front horn loaded. So you kind of don't have like one template that you kind of stick to. So maybe you can get into that kind of philosophy and synergistic approach that you're kind of going after.
Well, I do have a philosophy. So we have 3 different lineups of speakers. I have what we call the monitor series. So there's a mini monitor and what we call a monitor. And the monitor is on its 3rd iteration since, I don't know, I've made those for 20 years or more. And so it's a 7-inch woofer and a 1-inch dome, pretty normal. And then the mini monitor is a 5-inch woofer and a 1-inch dome, also pretty normal. It is not, I don't know, I maybe sold 300-400 pairs of them over the last 20 years. So it's not something that does a lot, but it's where people can start. Then, and that's kind of a leftover from the original, like the first one was called an XP, then an EP, then it became an XPS and an EPS, then an EPS2. And those were kind of like your standard symmetrical array speakers with woofer, mid-range tweeter, mid-range woofer. And I did that for up until maybe 2017. And we went through maybe 3 series. So a speaker of mine typically has like a shelf life in the store of about 10 years. And just going by, how they have progressed. And in 2017, it was a very good year. I made a lot of pretty significant designs and changes to the whole lineup. And in 2017, I made what I call the M2.5. And that's the speaker you see right behind me over there. And that was kind of like my first entry into compression drivers and horns and not larger woofers. That's not fair to say, because I mean, this has two 15-inch woofers. But it's kind of like when I got into pro drivers and stuff like that. And once you experienced listening to a very good compression driver on a horn waveguide, you really can't go back to a 1-inch dome. It just doesn't sound the same. This is so much more lifelike. And that series, kind of from that spilled into the one next to it is the 1.5. I think that was the next one I made. Then I went upwards, and I actually went to what we call the 777, which was the one we showed the prior year and last year at the show in Costa Mesa. And that actually came as a special, or it came to be because of a special order from my Thailand distributor. I said, I want something with a ribbon tweeter. And I said, okay. And I said, and I want a big speaker. I said, okay. So I came up with, in our signature hexagonal box. And funny thing about that our boxes are basically all the same relations in the design. So like on the back, there's a 74-degree angle in the front, and on the sides, there's a 19-degree angle, and in the front, there is a 22-degree angle. So I don't even need to think about how to cut them out, because it's 37, 19, and 22, or 34 is my settings that we cut them out. So all have the same relation in the dimensions. Anyway, this Thailand distributor said I want something big, so I came up with the 777, which is two 18-inch woofers, two 12-inch mid woofers, and then a ribbon driver. And the ribbon driver has a special, what I call a flower faceplate, that makes those two 12-inch woofers get as close to the ribbon as possible. And it turned out pretty damn good. And so that was in 2017. I probably made 25 pairs of them since then. And then it was like, hey, I need a little bit more bass. And then the bass towers came in with four 18-inch woofers on each side, powered with 2,000 watts per side. And that was the system we had last year at the show in Costa Mesa. And that can really move a lot of air.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And down from that, then came what we call the 3.5, which is one ribbon, one 12-inch, and then a 18-inch woofer. Fantastic speaker also. Then to make the line a little bit more accessible, I came out with what's called a 0.5, which is two 9-inch woofers and a ribbon, a horn-loaded ribbon also. So that kind of like ties that whole series together. And I've been quite successful for it. I probably made well over 100 pairs of the 2.5s since 2017.
That's amazing. Yeah,
And it's the speaker that sells the fastest. When I have people come in and listen to it, my favorite was when we were still in California. We moved to Texas at the end of September last year. And our new shop is up and running like this week, basically. I finished the first set of speakers last week in it. And where was I going with this? So the 2.5 selling quickly. When I started the company, I started in my garage, like Apple started in their garage, right? And then we moved into an industrial location, a little 1,000-square-foot shop. I got half of my neighbor's shop in the back and another half in my neighbor's shop on the other side in the back. So I had like a T and then 2,000 square feet. Then we did pretty good. That was in 96, I think. And then I was in that shop for about 8 years. then we bought a CNC router and with a big 5x10 table on it, so we can make a lot of speakers. And there wasn't room for that there, so then we moved across the street and one street over into one of them big concrete tilt-up buildings, and we were in that building for 16 years. Then we moved out to Alpine, California, on a 2.5 acre property that had a brand new shop building built on it, and we were in that one for 5 years. When we had moved from El Cajon, California, out to Alpine, at one morning at about 8:30, I get a call on my cell phone, and it said, "How does one demo your speakers?" And I said, "Well, you can set up an appointment, and then I can play pretty much whatever you want." And he said, "We moved from El Cajon out to Alpine." I said, "Yes, I know. I'm sitting in your driveway." I said, "Okay." I said, "So what do you want to listen to?" I said, "I want to listen to the 2.5s." I said, "Well, great. I have them in my personal listening room here. So give me 5 minutes." And, I went and let him in and fired up the system and played him for. And after 10 seconds, he said, "Okay, how do we make this happen?" And I have another guy also. It took him also about the same amount of time to buy it. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's like a dream success story that anyone would hope for.
Yeah.
So
and in what we're going to show in Austin, I'm not 100% sure yet, but we might show the 777 again with the bass towers, or I might do the 2.5s as a fully active system with bass towers with 3 15-inch woofers on each side, but a fully active system instead of a passive crossover. I think that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, both sound excellent, and I don't think anyone would be disappointed either way.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, another unique detail to your speakers, I think, is the construction and the finishes. I know you offer kind of some extensive real wood finishes, and
yes.
And if so desired, even custom paint finishes.
Oh yeah, I mean, we've done auto paint. Everything kind of goes in phases. I've noticed that over the many years, and it's also per territory, really, per country. Like in Scandinavia, we sell a lot of, blonde woods and stuff like that. That doesn't sell very well in the U.S. U.S. is like more walnut, rosewood, darker woods. We've sold a ton of speakers to Russia, none in the last 3 years, unfortunately. And a lot of very large speakers. The Russians, they like their large speakers. But anyway, on the finishes part, it's kind of like we have over 100 different veneers to choose from. And if you want a car paint, it's just like, give me the model year and color code, and we can do that. So it's an extensive process. Some veneers on smaller speakers will be more, because the cedar veneer can be anywhere from $60 to $800.
Right.
Like burls and exotics and stuff like that are always a lot more. On the speakers, like for example the 777s, the front of the speaker, the front baffle, that's laminated hardwood. It's 2 inches thick, and the reason for that is that way we can make the scalloped on each side of the tweeter to give that shape that the speaker has. And so it starts out of, I think it's about 14 beams of wood, 2 inches wide and inch and 75 wide, and we start out at 2 1/8, and then they're glued together in the machine down to 2 inches, and then all the driver cutouts are cut in. The inserts for the drivers are cut in, so we don't use wood screws. It's a metal insert that is screwed into the wood, and then there's a machine screw that attaches the driver to the cabinet. Then I don't know if you noticed, but on most of our speakers also we have display crossovers in the back. So where the crossover components are in the back of the speaker behind a plexiglass window, and you can look in and you can see what kind of components are used, stuff like that. And
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
On the bigger speakers, you can, say, hey, I want to use this type of capacitor. I want to use, this kind of inductor, and we can accommodate that.
Yeah, it's one of those great features that I think kind of just puts the whole overall aesthetic design over the top. You have that.
Yeah, I mean, people really seem to like that.
Yeah. So, yeah, if anyone is interested in getting some visuals of what Peter's been describing here, definitely head over to their website, pbnaudio.com, and take a look at some of the images on there, because these are really classic. Some have like a vintage vibe to them, but there's so many options. So that's really great. I'd like to get into maybe some of the components that PBN Audio offers. I know you've got amps, preamps, even a DAC. You've got DACs now available. So maybe get into maybe a little bit of what led you into offering that complete product line.
Well, the amplifiers, so the company was founded in April 1992, and we started offering amplifiers in mid-1998. And the reason for it was that when I went to college, I made one of Borbely's 60-watt stereo amps. And I had that for a while, and it was actually sounding pretty good. And I was like, okay, let's see what we can do. And so, again, I faxed Erno Borbely in Germany. He was in Munich at the time. I think he had retired, maybe not yet. He was working for National Semiconductor as a training manager in Europe. And I said, I want to start making your amplifiers commercially. And he said, okay, no problem. And so me and one of my buddies, we founded a company called Sierra Audio. And we made 2 amplifiers and a preamp. That was called the Everest for the big one and the Denali for the little one. And then the preamp was called a K2. And again, that was based on Borbely's designs. He did very many designs. He designed some of the Hafler products, like the 101 preamp, the DH100 power amp, the DH200, the XL280. Before he was with Hafler, he was with Dynaco. Actually, I think that's the same company. And he was responsible for doing the Dynaco 400, I think it was called. That was the design together with Buongiorno. I don't know if you remember him. James Buongiorno. He was SAE, Sumo, among other companies. And I think Sumo was the one that kept over. Great American Sound Company, GAS, was also one of them. But the Denali and the Everest and the K2, especially the Denali, was very well received when we came out with it. And I don't know exactly how many we made, but let's call it 50, 60 units. And some of them are still out there. Now I'm starting to get them back after about 25, 27 years for a recap. And because they ran pretty hot. It was 160 watt per channel amplifier and biased quite heavily. And so they ran hot, but they sounded fantastic. And most people ended up buying 2 of them for monoblocks and then driving them with the K2 preamp. What's unique about them is that it's a fully balanced design from input to output if you use them as monoblocks. And the preamp is also a fully balanced design from input to output. So each amplifier actually has 4 amplifier nodes inside it. And that, of course, makes it a little bit more complex, but it also makes it sound so much better. And in 2004 or 5, I changed the design a little bit. So we were buying circuit cards from Germany, and that Erno had designed. And, we bought some of the parts here. We got some of the parts from him, and we populated the circuit cards, and then, designed the boxes and or the chassis. And it's actually the same chassis I've been using since 1998. The heat sinks, there's either 2 or 3 per side, and they get a little longer or a little shorter, depending on what amplifier they're in. But it's the same basic design all the way through. The preamp has been in the same box or chassis also since the beginning, because it just works well. So there's no reason to change it. It might look a little industrious, but it works. You're not paying for bling on the outside. You are paying for bling on the inside.
All right.
Actually, that was when Fremer, he reviewed our phono preamp, which also, the phono preamp is also fully differential. So it has 4 nodes inside, and that, in my opinion, that's the only way to run an amplifier. And he coined that phrase, so like the bling is on the inside of this one, it's not on the outside. So in 2004, the first thing I redesigned was the amplifier on where, instead of having 3 separate circuit cards inside for the front end and the power supply, there's just one large circuit card. And it's the same circuit card I've been using since 2004. Because it's well laid out, it works well, no reason to change it. Output stages on the amplifiers, we've gone through 3 different iterations of output devices. So the Hitachi lateral MOSFETs we used at first, and the plastic packages of T.O.3Ps. Then I went to the Toshiba devices, also specifically made for audio. And then I went to the metal cans. That was in 2009. They're fantastic devices. Fortunately, they discontinued them about a year ago. So now we have gone back to the T.O.3P devices from the British company Exicon. But it is a lateral MOSFET which is specifically made for audio, and they're like super robust. I don't think I ever had one of those blow up.
Right.
Even if you short it, my design philosophy is, as with the speakers, with the amplifiers, is enormous power supply. So in our biggest power amplifier, we have a 4 kVA transformer. It's a 4,000 watts, for lack of a better word, VAs, volt amperes. And it weighs, I don't know, 85 pounds or something like that. And then a huge distributed node power supply with 800,000 microfarads of capacitance as the base. And then after the fuses on the output board, we have 470 mic capacitors bypassed with a 0.1 foil capacitor. So it's kind of like, the closer you get to where the power is going to be used, the faster the capacitor can discharge. And that makes for a very robust sound. And that is, the amplifiers are currently available in 3 different models: the EBSA1, the EBSA2, and the EBSA3. Again, it's the same circuit card. The rail voltage gets bigger, the heat sinks get bigger, and the transformers get bigger. So the EBSA1 is about 130 watts per channel. It has a 1.5 kVA transformer and 200,000 microfarads worth of capacitance. And then let me just go to the EBSA3 with a 4,000 VA transformer and 800,000 microfarads worth of capacitance. And in EBSA1 has 6 pairs of outputs per side. The EBSA3 has 10 pairs of outputs per side. The EBSA2 in the middle is a combination of the 2. So it's 2 EBSA1s in one box with one power supply from the big one. So that's about 700 watts per channel into an 8 ohm load. And about, 25 watts of that is class A. And you can, it can be biased almost as much heat as you can tolerate for class A, but, kind of up to up to people.
Yeah.
You know, how hot do you want to run it? And then as far as the preamps, the K2 developed into the Olympia L at first, and then the LX. The difference between the L and the LX was, again, it was on the K2, which was the first one, where we got the circuit cards from Germany. All those were put onto one big circuit card. That's 13 by 17 inches. And it has the voltage regulators and the 4 amp nodes and the volume control all, and the input switching all on the same card. So it's compact, and there's a lot of components on it. And fully balanced. And then the difference between the L and the LX is, again, the power supply. So on the smaller one, we have one transformer, 380 VA and 800,000 or 80,000 microfarads worth of capacitance. And then on the big one, we have two transformers and twice as much capacitance, because each channel of the amplifier is fed with its own dual power supply. So again, the philosophy is let's get as much power in there as we can, so it's there when it's needed.
Absolutely.
And then the phono preamp is kind of like a build up on that. Again, fully differential, comes in two versions, one with a smaller power supply and one with a bigger power supply. Again, the same idea, you know, one transformer or two transformers and a separate supply for each node of each channel. And again, if you go to the website, you can see all of that. We just don't show fancy front pictures and fancy back pictures. We actually take the covers off and then you look inside under the hood.
Yeah, so coming off of kind of the discussion of the phono preamp, is you guys offer a turntable.
Yes.
Maybe a couple of iterations of a turntable.
Well, I have two different lines of turntables. I have what's called the Vintage Direct, and they are based upon the Denon series that were in the late 70s, early 80s. They made, they started way before that, but they had a DP 3000, DP 2000, 6000, 7000, and DP 75 and 80. And it's a very good drive system. The motor is very good. I mean, but they looked like turntables did at that time, just a box, a rectangular box made out of particle board and with plastic veneer on it. Some of them had, real wood veneer on it. So I said, we got to make something really sexy looking from that. And it was a customer of mine in San Diego, a guy that I've been building speakers for I don't know, 30 years almost. And he came up with the basic idea of the design, with the three legs sticking out from the round center of the turntable that houses the platter. They were first made as belt drives, actually. And then I came up with the idea of the Vintage Direct. And so there's a very elaborate cutout in the wooden plinth that houses the motor and all the circuit card, the transformer, and it has a pod going out to the side where the arm can sit. And so it's a very compact, sturdy design. And, I buy the drives off eBay from, several Japanese buyers or sellers. And I bring them in here and tear them apart, completely refurbish all the circuit cards, take the motors apart, clean them out, new bearing, relubricate them, and then assemble everything in this plinth. And we sold a bunch of the Vintage Direct. Then in 2008, I think it was, I bought a Denon DN308 from a gentleman in Turkey. And I got it in, and I refurbished it in its original package. And it was a console that was used mainly in libraries and radio stations. And back then, you could only buy it. Actually, you could only lease it from Denon with a service contract. That was how proud they were of it. And it was designed together with the Japanese radio conglomerate. I don't know what they're called, but it would be like like National Public Radio here, I would assume. And there's only about 1,650 of them ever made. The youngest one I ever had was, I believe, number 52, and the latest one I ever had was like number 1,490 or something like that. And they were made from late 70s, maybe, up until 93, I think was the last one. And the one I got from Turkey, I refurbished in its original console, new veneer and new finish and refurbishment of all the circuit cards. And it was okay. And I sold it to a gentleman over in Virginia. And then when I started making the first vintage rec drives, the wood plinth based one, I said, well, we're going to make what's called a pro version. And that's when I came up with the DN308. And in the first series of those, I think I made 6 of them, which were all pre-sold before they were even made. And that is, again, all the controls, all the circuit cards, and the motor from the original DN308 console. And they're all, taken out of the original console. I originally imported the whole thing, but now I have an agent in Japan that takes them apart for me over there and just sends me the parts I need.
Yeah.
And that's a 1-inch thick aluminum bottom, a 1-inch thick aluminum top. The bottom houses all the circuit cards, the transformer, feet, and then there's a hardwood frame in between the two. And the top plate holds some of the controls and interface, like buttons and switches and a tachometer and just 2 arm boards. You can replace the arm boards with whatever arm you want to use. Only 12-inch arms need to apply because the plate that holds the motor is about 14 inches in diameter. And the turntable, when it's finished, weighs 155 pounds. And I'm just today started on another batch of 3 of them. I ordered all the metal plates from the machine shop.
Yeah. Wow.
So hopefully I'll have one of those in at the Austin show. Definitely at the Costa Mesa show.
Excellent. Look forward to it. Yeah.
And then we also went in, and a customer said to me, "Can you do this with some of the Pioneer exclusive drives?" I said, "Sure, I can." And so we also have a P10 exclusive, and we have a P3 exclusive table. And P3 is a fantastic table. And again, the same idea, it's all built on the same platform.
Yeah, no, I think I've seen, one of the mottos on your site is, if you can think it, we can build it.
Yeah, that's from the custom shop. Yeah. I also built speakers for other, smaller high-end companies. We built for an example, Quintessence Acoustics in San Diego. We built for them for 30 years or so. And those are quite elaborate boxes. They have a little bit of like the Wilson multi-box flair to them. We built for Soliloquy when they were still a company. It was actually Carry Audio that started that company. And a lot of other, smaller companies. And then we get, custom orders and say, hey, like for an example, what I explained to you before, how the 777 started. That started as a custom order, and since then, we've sold, I think it's like 17 pairs since then.
So we are getting close to the end of our broadcast time, but I definitely would like to let our audience know, how does someone get their hands on your products? Are you on like a dealer arrangement, or is there direct sales?
It's a combination of both. Over half of our product is going overseas. And then I have a very good dealer up in Oklahoma called The Sound Station. You can check out his website, thesoundstation.com. Or you can also contact us from our website, and depending on where you are, we can supply you.
Excellent. So if anyone wants to kind of learn more about your products, or maybe they have a question about a specific product, what's typically the best way for them to get in contact with PBN Audio?
Email from the website. That is by far the best. You can also call, and I will answer on my cell phone pretty informally. So
great. And yeah, throw up the site here again for everyone. It's pbnaudio.com. And just like to highlight for everyone again that, yeah, Peter and PBN Audio will be at LoneStar Audiofest, and that's going to be May 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, and that's in Round Rock, Texas. So if you're near Austin, you're right there. And he'll also be featured at the show SoCal in June. That's 6th, 7th, and 8th, and that's in Costa Mesa, California. Anything else you would like to add?
I think we covered most of it.
Excellent. And yeah, if anyone wants to find out more information specifically about these shows, or to purchase early tickets, I know there's often some early bird pricing for these shows. Just visit theshownow.com. You can find all that information there. And we'd love to see you. Come down, visit Peter, listen to his epic systems. Doesn't matter what he's bringing, but it's going to be pretty epic.
Well, thank you.
So thank you so much, Peter. I really enjoyed this talk.
Have a good one.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.